Hey, welcome to Confessions of a CX Executive. This is a weekly show where we tackle the good, the bad, and the unprofitable about customer experience. So whether you are a first-time entrepreneur just starting out, struggling to hit that first million, or if you've got pretty much most of it figured out, you might be a $50 million business, but you still got some operational quirks, well, we're here to talk about that. Here, we're not going to just talk about theories. We're going to talk about real-world applicability based on my experiences in the world of customer experience. Once again, my name is JP Dumont. I've spent more than 25 years in the customer experience space, focusing on revenue optimization, employee engagement, all things operations for some of the big brands you may have heard of in the Fortune 500. So stick around. This weekly show, we're going to talk about what to do, what not to do, who to hire, what not to hire, and we'll have some fun doing it. And from time to time, we'll have a few special guests. For today's topic, I want to talk about the 4 mistakes that first-time founders tend to make, particularly those in the operations space. So if you're ready for the ride, come on down and let's have a great time. So the first issue is, who do I hire? Now, this is one that typically makes me laugh, only from the standpoint of it looks great to build an outstanding team. But remember, headcount is one of your biggest expenses. So if you're just starting out, you want to be very, very careful how you go about this. So the question I would pose to you is simply this. Are you looking for help simply because you're tired? Or is there a specific problem that you need this individual to work on? Because that's really going to define who you hire. And the best advice I can give you is hire for the job, for traction, for things you need to get done. Think of it as a Swiss Army knife, not for the title. Because here's what happens when you hire for title. You made your first million or two, and you say, I'm going to go get a COO. I'm going to go get a head of operations. The problem is that you may get an individual who has a fancy title, has a lot of buzzwords, but isn't necessarily one that's going to roll up their sleeves and get dirty. You need someone who can help you fix certain problems and get the business on track, not the head of ... I guess the best analogy I can give you is, if you're running a food truck, you probably wouldn't want to hire a Michelin chef, because by lunchtime, you both will probably be crying. So again, take some time and attention to think about not only who you're hiring, but why you're hiring and what issues they can take off of your plate. The second question is, well, I have a team. Which tool should I use? Because I see that there's Notion, there's HubSpot, there's various CRM applications. I should just go get one, right? Well, I think there's 2 answers to this question. No and heck no. And here's the issue. See, before you apply any sort of tech stack, I think the most important question you have to ask yourself is, what problem are we trying to solve? Not the fancy stuff, but really be able to articulate our process flows in the business. See, if you can't put it on a whiteboard, you probably shouldn't put it into software either, because ultimately, you don't want to automate chaos, and you certainly don't want chaos operating at scale. So you want to be able to explain what processes you're trying to fix, and there may be other processes that can help you get there before we go into the big bad automation that some of the quote unquote big boys have. In my experiences, I remember building a great platform, dashboard, had all the bells and whistles. The funny thing is, nobody used it. They weren't quite sure what problem we were trying to solve. The other issue is, if it takes you more than a couple of weeks to get your team up to speed on this tool, problem is probably the tool and not the individual. So let's stay away from automating and doing all those sort of things until we're clear on our processes, because ultimately automation is going to give you a really shiny object with great fonts, but no applicability in the real world. The third question I often get asked is, what about an org chart? Shouldn't I just copy my friend's org chart? He's around $2-3 million in revenue. I should just use his. Well, unless your friend is running your business, please stay away from this. Remember, an org chart is not a family tree. Each role has to have a specific purpose in the business. And as I like to say, each role needs to be able to pay for itself. Now, when I had teams that in a P&L over $700 million, there were multiple lines of business. There were people running in a lot of different directions. Kind of needed an org chart to kind of keep those things in line. But an org chart should be functional for your business, not a collection of titles. So the most important thing for you to do is ensure that you have clarity in your business for what each role is going to do. Figure out the specific problem that this individual will solve and then iterate around that, not the title. That's probably the most important thing that you can do in your business today. Number 4. So now that I've got, $5 million, $10 million, it feels like things are breaking in my business. I feel like I'm not gaining the traction that I should. But here's the rub. The most important question I would ask you is simply this. Is it by design? So back in the day, I implemented a pay-for-performance program for my outsourced team that fundamentally changed our rewards and compensation system. Yeah, it was a shift in the business. Yeah, it felt like we set our contact center on fire, but that was by design. See, there's a difference between operational stress, in which things feel a little bit harder, they feel a little bit different, but you're making progress in your business. That's the kind of thing that you want to feel when you say things are breaking. But there's operational failure that occurs when you find yourself fixing the same problems over and over again. Now, the most important piece here is you don't want to scale those problems. What you want to scale is the fix to those problems. So what that means is you need a better system so that you're not solving the same issues over and over again. So the most important piece is if things feel like they're breaking and you're not making progress, take a look at your systems, because that might be the place to start before we do anything else. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition. 4 quick questions that I typically get asked and the common pitfalls that first-time founders or any operations leader, quite frankly, may find themselves in. So again, I'm JP Dumas. This is Confessions of a CX Executive. I'm the principal and co-founder of CX and Growth Strategies, where we work with small and mid-sized businesses to solve these sort of problems. So let's talk more next week. Leave your questions in the comments, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.